obviously we're going to talk a little bit about MLW, sport in the shirt, but I wanted to learn more about your online training courses that you've been promoting. I'm curious as to how it all works, how it's been going so far.
Yeah, been going very well. Thank you for asking about that, by the way. So the concept that I came up with um, actually stems back to my online acting coach, who's a guy by the name of Howard Fine. He's one
Oh,
of
okay.
he's one of the most prestigious acting coaches in the entire world, really.
Mhm.
Um, And I was looking for something, obviously, because I don't live in Los Angeles, but I was looking for someone, who had that level of experience, but something that I could do remotely, right? Because with
Mhm.
the advent of COVID and the pandemic, that became more prevalent and more uh, just more apparent. So I was taking classes with Howard online, and I thought, man, this format is so helpful to me as someone who can't be there in person. Because again, you can learn a lot about acting over, a Zoom call just like this one. Um, is it perfect? No, because a lot of acting requires interpersonal relationships and, actually being with someone in a room and stuff like that. But you can get a lot out of it. And I thought, man, there's so many parallels to pro wrestling, and there's just no opportunity for that in our space of professional wrestling, because everybody assumes that you have to focus on the physical part of it, and the physical part of it obviously is a big part of it, right? I'm not trying to sell anyone a lie or a bill of goods here and say that you can come to the Dijak Wrestling Academy and with no experience and you'll be ready to wrestle a match. That's not the case, right? Obviously, there's a major physical element to professional wrestling. But what I can do is I can give you a lot of the mental aspects of it. I can talk about the physical parts of it and explain the psychology behind a lot of it. I can show you appropriate footwork and things like that using video sort of explanations and things like that. To me, it's a great way to introduce someone to the ideas and concepts behind the scenes of professional wrestling and learning to be a worker and learning to be a professional wrestler. And it can also be great supplemental work, right? If you are training with someone in a physical location and doing the physical portions of it, which I also offer as a trainer at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy in North Andover, Massachusetts. I train every Wednesday there with people physically in a ring. The owners of the school have been gracious enough to offer $500 off any training package for those who complete or those who participate in my uh, 8-week online course. Um, I understand people's hesitancy because you hear learn pro wrestling online and you say that's ridiculous. He's just being a
Mhm.
liar. Uh, the classes are currently full. They're doing very well. Everyone who's in them is extremely happy with the presentation. We spend 1 hour talking about curriculum-based things, and then we spend 1 hour just doing interactive sort of stuff where you present me with a promo and I talk about the promo, or you talk about your character, and we can talk about tons of things. There is so much, and this is what a lot of people who aren't professional wrestlers don't understand, is that there's so much about pro wrestling that is up here, right? That's mental,
Mhm.
the psychology of all of it. Why am I doing this? How do I try to make it make sense? All of these different components of it. How do I structure a match? What's the best way to get reactions? What's the best way to there's just a ton of different things we can talk about, and a lot of people don't understand that. They just see, oh, teach me how to do a hip toss, teach me how to do a backbreaker, right? And they think that's pro wrestling. And I understand why, because you watch pro wrestling, whether it's on TV or you watch it in person or whatever, and you see the performers doing it and you go, oh, they make it look so easy, right? It looks like there's just a coordination of moves. And once I learn how to do the moves, this will be the simplest thing I do, right? Because we do a good job of making something that is outrageously difficult seem fairly straightforward. I
Mhm.
promise you it's not fairly straightforward. There's a ton of depth that goes into it. I love to talk about it. I love to explain it to people. I mentioned already it's an 8-week course. all online, all on Zoom, and everyone who's taking the course right now, we're in week 4 right now, is super excited about it. Everyone's learning a ton. Some people have experience, some people are on shows, some people are currently training, some people have never trained before in their lives. We cross the whole spectrum, and it's all applicable, useful information that people are really digesting at a great price point. It's
Mhm.
$250, so significantly less than training in in a ring, right? But rightfully so, because you're not
Mhm.
getting the full sort of green light to be on shows. But it's a great accessory, it's great supplementary, and it's great introduction, or a great process to review if you already have full training. It's really a good resource for everybody, including myself. I'm learning a lot as well, because pro wrestling is a two-way street, and I love to talk, I love to learn, I love to just envelop myself in the space of professional wrestling.
It kind of goes back to the argument where what sells wrestling? Is it the story or moves? So like I get why you're saying like, oh yeah, there's people hesitate, but it kind of, it reinforces like, yeah, Matt, like moves are cool, but you need the other parts. You need the storytelling aspects. You need like the, you know, the minute stuff that maybe not everybody picks up on the first time, but you watch it again and you're like, oh, okay, that's why that works so well.
Yeah, there's a ton of that in professional wrestling. We talked about story last week. It was part of the week 3 curriculum. I wrote up a whole curriculum. It's funny because I actually wrote this all up
Hmm.
on my phone throughout the course of this was back in I think I started first doing this in 2021, right? When I was traveling from Monday Night Raw, and I was going from town to town to town. I was flying every week just to do, main event or whatever as T-bar, but not Retribution T-bar, like post Retribution T-bar.
Hmm.
Um, so I would just grab my phone, this phone right here, and I would type in my notes app, just I'd start to outline like all the things about professional wrestling and like how they fit into different categories. And it kept going and kept going, to the point where I was like, I don't even know why I'm writing this stuff. And I just ended up with a huge, huge list of stuff. And I organized all of it, and I said, what do I do with this information, right? Can
Hmm.
I write a book? Can I write, and then just, I think at the end of November, I was having a discussion with my wife, and we were trying to figure out, right now that I'm not under the WWE umbrella, I can have multiple uh, revenue streams, right? So I'm trying to
Hmm.
figure out like what's another way where I can teach people professional, because this is something that I love doing. And I'm like, what am I going to do after I can't wrestle anymore? What am I going to? And so I thought to myself, like, I've always wanted to figure out a way to replicate Howard's model as a professional, in a professional wrestling space.
Hmm.
And then I had this pre-written sort of list, and I'm like, I think I can use this as like a curriculum to sort of start to teach people under, from my own mind. And that's kind of what we've been doing. So yeah, the psychology that you were just talking about, or uh what's the term? I just had it, but anyway, that's what we were talking about last week in the curriculum portion of it. And yeah, everybody's super receptive to it. It's all very applicable, and like I said, I learn just as much from them as they
Hmm.
do from me. So yeah, it's really a fun tool.
I I have to call attention to this, but I appreciate how you said there's two different eras of T-bar. There's the Retribution T-bar and then there's post-Retribution T-bar.
There is, yeah. A lot of people forget about post-Retribution T-Bar because he was not on television very often.
So I needed to call attention to that. But I, I know Howard's name. Like I know somebody else has told me about working with him or like just learning from him. And if people want to know, like obviously check out more about your school, but go check out, do a quick Google on Howard Fine. Like he's worked with a lot of other wrestlers in the business. So
Yep. So if you're a pro wrestling fan, you likely know him from Cody's documentary. He did
okay.
a little cameo in there where he was talking about training with Cody in the mid 2000s, because
Mhm.
Cody came to his school in Los Angeles and he wanted to transition to acting. I think Cody's sister did some stuff too. And frankly, I didn't know any of this until I first met Howard, and he
Mhm.
was talking to me about how, oh, I know Cody Rhodes, and I did, and he was a trainer at the Performance Center for a few weeks before I got there.
Mhm.
I was like, why? Perfect. The person that I found that seemed most qualified for me already knows all about the pro wrestling landscape and how acting fits into that and what the parallels are.
Mhm.
So yeah, he's just tremendous. Some of his biggest students are doing so well right now. He trained Austin Butler, who's I don't know if it was from day one, but that's his biggest, sort of teacher was Howard. But he does stuff with The Rock. He does stuff with everyone in Hollywood. He's really sort of viewed as like the acting
Mhm.
guru of Hollywood. So yeah, the fact that you can just go to his website and sign up and learn to him on a Zoom class to me is like it's the kind of stuff that 10 years ago was not an option, right? You couldn't do it.
Mhm.
You had to drop everything to go learn from this person, right? Which people did, right? They would drop their whole lives to go train with Lance Storm or to go train with Howard Fine as an actor or whatever. And now we've progressed to a space where maybe you don't get the full experience, but you can get a big chunk of that just by
Mhm.
signing up for a class and paying X amount of dollars. I mean, and it's not like major money. Like obviously there's a price tag that goes with these things, but it's you don't have to spend your life
Yeah.
saving on a Zoom class or whatever. It's everything is reasonably priced. He's just an outstanding person. I talk about it all the time in my classes. There's so many parallels between acting and professional wrestling, and you would think that it would be in the promo space, but it's really in ring more than promos. Promos are actually dramatically different than acting because acting is about investing in a character and believability and things like that. Promos are just kind of making the wildest scene that you can possibly get in terms of
Mhm.
memorable and kind of getting information across within the context of that wildness. In ring is actually where we're doing a lot more to convince people of realism and things like that. So there's a ton of parallels there, and I love the interaction between the two. It's such a wonderful uh, deep dive into human psychology. Really
Mhm.
is what it ends up being.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear it's been going so well. You have a link you want to drop, or you want to do the plug right real quick while
Yeah,
we're on
sure.
it?
It's my website is dijakwrestling.com. You can find all the information there. The next set of classes are a little bit of ways away. I haven't even like publicly announced them, but they are on the website if you wanna check it out. Just click the join now button. You plug in a couple things of information, then they'll pop up with all the dates and everything there. I also do ongoing one-on-one sessions, which is just like what you and I are doing right now, but it'd be an hour long, and we talk about whatever you want in the world of professional wrestling. And I have some new stuff coming in too that I'll be announcing very soon. It's all available at dijakwrestling.com, and I'm gonna have some announcements coming up within the next week or so.
You've been on quite a run with MLW so far. I mentioned I wanted to get into that a little bit. Battle Riot is the next big event coming up, and we're still kind of seeing that take shape. Matt Riddle's going to defend the title in the Battle Riot match. It's the seventh one, but since you've gotten there, you've had some pretty big matches. You've faced Riddle before. You've had a match with Timothy Thatcher, Tom Lawler. Talk to me about how this run's been going. Has it, I don't want to say has it met your expectations, but what's it like having your feet under you and like, you're not trying it out for the first time. Like you've been there a few different events. How are things going? What are you looking forward to going into such a big weekend with Battle Riot 7 coming up?
Yeah, I'll add to what you said. It's exceeded my expectations, definitely, easily exceeded my expectations, right? Because
Mhm.
I was um let's call it hesitant at first, um, especially coming right off of my WWE run because Court was legitimately one of the first probably 10 people to send me an
Mhm.
email on whatever that Thursday was, June 28th or July, whatever it was. He contacted me right away. And I'll be honest, the last thing I wanted to see at that point was like uh, So, how do I describe
It's
this?
a double-edged sword because you're like, yeah, I'm available, but like you don't really want to sit there and go through it all because you're
I did,
processing what just happened.
I didn't want to be put in a situation that I had just been in for a long time.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it boils down to. And that was my concern. So there was a month or two there where I was thinking about it and I was considering it, and then I had a phone call with both Court and with Saint Laurent, and they were they were speaking to me, and they were telling me j just from talking to them, I got a better sense because email can be one thing, right? People say lots of things on email, and it's like, what do you mean? What do you not mean? From speaking to them, I got a very good sense that this was going to be different. Um, which isn't to imply that my run in WWE was horrible. It wasn't, right? I was given a ton of opportunities. I was, especially toward the end, I was put in a position where it's been less than a year since I was able to have one of the biggest matches of my career in front of 16,000 people, and wonderful platform. They gave me the opportunity to be a character that I designed and I wanted to be. So I'm eternally thankful for all of those opportunities. But what I was looking for at that point in my career was something more, right? More, by more I mean like more pressure, like more responsibility in terms of a talent, because I was constantly uh, requesting to be featured as a top guy in WWE. I asked, everybody. Um, so that's what I wanted to communicate to MLW is like, here's how I view myself. If that's not how you view me, that's fine, no worries. But this is what I'm looking for in terms of presentation, in terms of this, that, and the other thing. And my guarantee to whoever wants to give me that is I'm going to continue to do what I've always done, and that's completely exceed your expectations, right?
Hmm.
Anytime I was given an opportunity in WWE, I didn't say, okay, let me do what they're asking of me. It was, no, how do I have the best triple threat match in WWE history, right? That was always my goal. I don't know whether I achieved that or not, but that was my mindset going into any
Hmm.
opportunity. How do I have the best last man standing match in WWE history, in pro wrestling history, right? Like, how do I these are the goals that I set for myself when I'm given opportunities. So the fact that MLW is giving me these opportunities, that's when my mind starts going just completely over the top. Like, how do I continue to progress this company? How do I put everything on my back? How do I put the pressure of an entire company and say, I'm going to be the top guy. I'm going to take this thing where it's never been before. I'm going to try to progress us to a point where people look at MLW in the same way that we do, right? And that became the collaborative mission, and they've completely exceeded all my expectations in terms of execution. It's a complete collaboration. I'm so happy with the presentation so far, and I'm super excited to continue working in that direction towards those goals because we all have the same vision.
And like I said, Battle Riot 7, that's April 5th, in Los Angeles. That's going to be a big weekend for MLW. It's not WrestleMania weekend anymore. They pushed theirs back, so I'm I'm happy to see an event like this get to stand on its own instead of, everybody fighting for uh, that WrestleMania real estate. So that's one good thing to come from an Easter Sunday WrestleMania, which
I'm actually going to England that weekend. I
okay,
decided Las Vegas is going to be so jam-packed. I was like, I don't even want
yeah.
to. I've done so many WrestleMania weekends in a row where I wasn't on WrestleMania that
Hmm.
I don't even want to be in the area anymore. It's funny. It reminds me of my first I've never told this story before, so hopefully he doesn't get mad at me. But in hindsight, it's actually kind of a great story. My first weekend, I don't even remember where it was, but my first WrestleMania weekend, I guess, would have been 2018 because I was
Hmm.
signed in 2017. And I remember I was still texting Cody Rhodes pretty regularly, And I remember asking him like, "Oh, are you going to be in the area? Can we get something to eat?" And he said, I was around so many WrestleManias for so many years. He's like, honestly, at this point in my, and this was I think this was his first WrestleMania where he wasn't there, right? So this was
Hmm.
2015 or whatever. And he's like, that's really the last place I want to be. And I feel very much the same way right now.
Yeah.
I'm in the same, hopefully my career works out the same way his did, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously he's like headlining all of them now. So he definitely wants to be at WrestleMania now. But yeah, at that point in his career, it was like, I've been around WrestleMania so often that like now I just need my space from
Hmm.
wrestling. That's where I feel right now. So I'm going to a completely different country that
Yeah.
weekend because I need my space from WrestleMania weekend
Yeah.
for
Plus it's Vegas. Like I just went there, the
yeah.
Convention Center Authority or the LVCVA invited us out to like kind of just do some of like the restaurants and some of the shows and all the stuff. And it was a really cool weekend, but like the whole entire time I'm like, okay, but add wrestling to this. Like, oh, this is cool, but add wrestling. This is cool, add wrestling fans. This hotel's, you know what I mean? It's like it's gonna be interesting to see because everybody talks like they're still talking about the Super Bowl. That the people that I met there, they're like, yeah, the Super Bowl is crazy, blah blah. I'm like, wrestling's a little, like there is some crossover between football and wrestling, but like it's still its own thing, and it gets pretty crazy.
It's overwhelming. It can
Hmm.
be overwhelming. Even last year in Philadelphia, it was very overwhelming. And I like being obviously I like being around wrestling and I love being around the pageantry and all of that stuff. Um, there was a point in Philadelphia where I was just trying to focus on my match, and that became difficult.
Hmm.
Obviously, it ended up working out. We ended up having a great match and finding the time to do that. But yeah, like even walking down the street, becomes an event.
Hmm.
I was trying to go visit my friends at WrestleCon, MXM, and just walking to that hotel was like, oh my God, there's so many,
Hmm.
people stopping me, people were doing this, doing that. So it was like it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for the opportunity for it, but yeah, some space from it is going to be a good venture for me
Yeah. I,
at this,
I, I've
at this point in my career.
I've learned over the years that if you try, and especially as it's grown, if you try to do everything in the weekend, you're gonna fail
Yeah.
and you're not gonna enjoy it. Because I remember when 33 was in Orlando
Mhm.
and I lived there, but you're going to like Ring of Honor's in Lakeland, and then, Orlando's much bigger than people probably realize.
I would listen. I was there that
So,
weekend. I was all over the damn place. I wrestled Keith Lee, and it was it was busy. Yeah,
yeah.
it was too. It's too much. Too much for my body. Too much for my brain. Too much. Just it's a lot, right? If
Yeah.
if you're able to go as a WWE, I'll say this too. As a WWE talent who's like been on the main roster and never had that experience, it's it's a difficult pill to swallow. It really
Hmm.
is. And I don't think I'm telling stories out of school. This isn't like a foreign concept.
Yeah.
I was on Monday Night Raw, and I really, really, really wanted to be on WrestleMania, and I was never on WrestleMania. That's difficult to be around, right?
Hmm.
I'm happy for all my friends who got to do it, and I'm super excited, and it's always a wonderful opportunity. But I really wanted to be on WrestleMania, and I never was. So that's hard to be around. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think any human being would understand that. So even on Stand and Deliver, even the biggest match of my life, the biggest opportunity of my life, you finish that, and we got on the bus and we dropped everybody off at WrestleMania, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to go to catering and go to?" And I said, "Nope, no, I don't," because that's very very difficult pill for me to swallow. I love it. I watched it. I watched all my friends succeed. I watched all of these great things, but just I'm a competitor, and the drive in me wants to be on that stage, and it's very difficult for me to sit there and not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a human being just like everybody else,
I've
So
I think it's very relatable. Like you can be happy for, like you said, the other people, and just I don't want to use the cliche, but it's almost like not touching the Stanley Cup. Like you don't want to touch it until you won it yourself. So
right, exactly,
yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah.
But I I want to go back to another match, and I think most people talk about the photo you posted after the match, the dislocated finger,
Yeah.
because that kind of the anniversary just kind of came up. NXT just had Vengeance Day that happened at Vengeance Day 2023. Uh, you obviously knew something was wrong right away,
Yeah.
but how do you pivot and work around an injury like that? Especially like pro wrestling, it strikes and grapples. Like you need your hands throughout the match. So, you almost lose the ability to make a fist or, how did you work around that in that moment? Like how
I
do you
was I was very lucky because I didn't have to. And here's why. If you watch the match back, the final sequence of events is I climb up for a moonsault onto Wes Lee, who's trapped in a chair. Tony D'Angelo and Stax run in and move him out of the way, and I moonsault onto them. I throw Wes Lee into the ring. I do a springboard into the ring, and he super kicks me, and then he sets up his backhand spring Pele kick, and that's the finish of the match. So on that springboard into the ring where he super kicked me, he kicks me, and my left hand, which is this hand, goes down into the mat to brace because I did a big recoil, sort of like got kicked in the face. And as I drive this hand in the mat to just push on the ground,
Mhm,
it connects in a way and catches this way, and this finger just completely bends sideways. And it had oddly been like weirdly catching the mat throughout the match. So I could feel it kind of like loosening up. And I was like, oh, that's weird. That never happens. But like sometimes the adrenaline's running and just different things happen differently. But yeah, I felt it jam into the mat. And then I go to like see what's wrong as I'm selling and he's setting up the finish. And I'm looking at it and it's sideways, and I go, oh, that's not good.
mhm,
And it doesn't hurt, but if I could feel that something happened. So as he's setting up the finish, I'm trying to jam my finger back into place. You can see this on the video if you watch it.
mhm,
I'm trying to jam my finger back into place, and he's not looking at me, so he doesn't know what's happening behind him. So he's doing his whole theatrics, and then he starts the back handspring, and I'm just like, well, oh well. And then I come in and take the kick, boom, down I go. He covers me. And I'm just laying there looking at my dislocated finger. And I'm like, well, what do I do with this? So they're doing replays and stuff. And I just start yelling at the roaming camera, which is the camera guy on the ground.
mhm,
I'm just yelling at him to get a shot of me, right? Because I'm like, oh,
mhm,
this might as well put it on TV, right? Just looks like he just destroyed me and I'm just a mangled corpse, right?
mhm,
So the cameraman gets the shot, the director decides to cut to it. So they get the shot on TV. Um, so we finish, we go to the back. It was my goal going into that match, right? Because this was the first, I think it was the opener. I think it
yeah,
was the first match on the card. So it's the first match of NXT's first on the road live pay-per-view
that's right.
since I think since Portland Takeover, which was me and Keith Lee, where I was the opener. So
Mhm,
my goal was to bring that essence back to NXT to say, hey, we're back on the road, and here's the kind of matches that we're gonna have, right? And I think we succeeded in doing that. I didn't have any time to like soak it in or anything because I go through the gorilla. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, great job!" And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." But the doctor's like rushing me past them. I'm
mhm,
like, "I'll talk to you in a few minutes," and I didn't get to like. I was like, "Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the, thank you, shot." And we just moved right past them to get to the doctor's office because there was a doctor on site. So he gets what he described to me as three good pulls before we decide that it's broken and I have to go to the hospital. So this was some of the most painful stuff I've ever done in my life because now the adrenaline's worn off. He's trying to jam this finger back into place. And
mhm,
I've had dislocated fingers before. This one was football in college. This one was basketball in college, and this one was pro wrestling, right? So these two, the doctor just trunk and just brump, and they went right back into place. This one, he's pulling on it, nothing happens. He puts his foot on the table and he starts pulling on it, nothing happens. And I'm like, and so he gets to the final one, and I'm like, this is so horribly painful. And he goes, yeah, it's probably broken. You have to go to the hospital. And I was
like
like,
you think
picture, the picture that's
it's pinned.
still my pinned tweet, just because I think it's awesome. is me in front of a brick wall. That brick wall's the hospital in North Carolina.
Nice.
I was texting my buddies, and Mansoor from MXM was like, "You should probably take a picture of that because that's pretty cool." Because I sent them a picture, and I think he said something like, "Why don't you give the give take a picture of you giving the middle finger?" And I'm like, "That's the greatest idea I've ever
Yeah.
heard." So I took I had the PA that I was with take the picture, and then I put it in black and white. And yeah, we went into the hospital right after that. They took an X-ray. They were like, "Somehow your finger's not broken." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So they tried to jam it back into place. That didn't work. So they're like, okay, so they put a shot of something in there that apparently numbs it and loosens it up.
Okay.
And then it was the least painful thing that ever happened to me was actually the success of getting it back
Yeah.
into place. And I, in my infinite wisdom, desperately wanted to wrestle the next day. And I told Sean immediately, I was like, listen, I will brace this up, I'll wrap it up, and I'm ready to go tomorrow. Because I was on uh, I don't know what the term is, but like we had done well and I wanted to continue that momentum going into TV.
Mhm.
And they were like, absolutely not. You need to take 3 weeks off. And I was like, great, there goes my momentum. Now I'm definitely not going to be on Stand and Deliver. And there goes everything that I worked for because of this stupid finger injury. Thankfully, we got back around to it and
Yeah.
we got me and Ilya for Battleground, which again was, tremendous and he's tremendous. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the story of my finger. Anyway.
Well,
Well, I sell a lot of ratio t-shirts, so it ended up monetizing fairly well for me.
yeah, I was gonna say we were talking about revenue streams earlier. That's a t-shirt right there. So
It is one of my best-selling t-shirts,
yeah.
actually.
All right. Anything else you want to plug or promote? I know we talked quite a bit about the online wrestling school. Any promotion, any appearances you have coming up? I plugged Battle Riot already.
I got a bunch. I'm always busy, right? This next weekend I have Beyond Wrestling in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's almost sold out. Me versus Cruel, who's another MLW guy. That'll be a first-time matchup. Super looking forward to that. He's a great dude. Um, After that, I think I'm back in England for Burning Heart Pro Wrestling. That'll be an awesome weekend, tournament style. Um, I don't know what I have after that. I'd have to check my schedule, but yeah, it's all good, fun stuff. Sign up to train with me at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. It's neprowrestling.com, dijakwrestling.com to do online stuff. Yeah, you can find me on social media at DijakFYE. Everything's at DijakFYE. Keep up with me there.
And you can find him in England on WrestleMania weekend.
I will be. That's actually just announced. Yeah, I think the first match or the first, yeah, it'll come out very soon.
Yeah.
It'll come
By
out.
by the time this runs, we'll
It'll
be
probably
able
be
to
out.
attach it. So